For better understanding of personal finance, the global finance has to be understood. With the aim of understanding the global economy and thereby improving your own personal finances, this series is created. Let's get started. Macroeconomics analyzes the broader aspects of economy, including national income, unemployment, inflation, economic growth, and the overall behavior of consumers, producers, and the government. Studying macroeconomics is essential for comprehending the functioning of entire economies and has practical applications in policy making, business decision making, investment, personal finance, and various other fields. It provides valuable tools and insights for addressing economic challenges and opportunities at both individual and societal levels. Macroeconomics focuses on economy as a whole rather than individual markets or firms. Understanding macroeconomics shall help us understand the economy, business decision making, international trade, personal finance, policy formulation, economic forecasting, how and why of economic crisis, investment decisions, among many other things. And our prime focus in this series is personal finance and understanding of the economy, with all these ancillary concepts also covered to some level. Let's start with our first concept, which is national output, also known as gross domestic product or GDP. Let's say a government prints all the money possible and turned its residents into millionaires, but the output produced has not increased. Will the residents have any improvement in their living standards? The answer is no, and most likely the living standards can be moving towards the worse. Note that large quantities of output and not large quantities of money makes a nation prosperous. Gross domestic product is the market value of all goods and services produced within a country over a year. When calculating GDP, everything produced by the country over the year has to be captured. Every ounce of milk, every gram of iron, every grain of wheat, every byte of software produced, every service which was delivered and monetized, etc. When capturing GDP, we have to be very beware of double counting. Let's see it with an example. Let's say that a farmer raised a chicken and sold it for $10. A retailer purchased it, cleaned it, refrigerated, and sold to a restaurant for $15. Restaurant further cooked and sold it for $25. So what shall be the output in this case? The contributions to the GDP. Shall it be 10 plus 15 plus 25, which is $50? The answer is no, because in this case we are going to do double counting. What we need to do is we need to add value produced at every step. Here the initial value was 10, here the value produced was 5, and here the value produced was 10. So accumulation of value produced is 25, and 25 is what is getting added to the GDP of the nation. For GDP calculation, we have different approaches which are possible. First approach is the production approach, which we have just seen, wherein the value of goods and services produced by the country are accumulated. The second approach is income-based approach, wherein we add the income of all the employees within a country during a specific time period. This includes wages, salaries, profits, rents, and interest. As income is for the production or for the output produced, the income is what measures the GDP in this case. The third approach is called expenditure approach, and this is the approach which is typically used by most of the countries. This method calculates GDP by adding up all the expenditures made by the country within an year. So the formula is this. It is accumulation of everything minus the imports, because imports is something which we are importing from outside the country, so that is subtracted. That is not your produce, that is not the output of the country, so thereby it is subtracted. And what are the accumulation factors? C, which is consumer spending on goods and services, I for business investments, G for government spending, X for exports, and M for imports. So how does a GDP help us? So it indicates the economic performance. So it provides a measure of countries' overall economic performance and growth over time. GDP allows comparison of economic size and performance between different countries. Government and policymakers can use GDP data to evaluate impact of economic policies. Standard of living, GDP per capita, which we are going to see in detail in a little bit, indicates how wealthy the individuals living in a specific country are. Higher GDP per capita often correlates with higher standard of living. Business decision. Businesses use GDP data to make decisions about production, investment, and market expansion. A growing GDP may indicate increased customer demand and business opportunities. As per the IMF, these are the countries with the highest GDP listed in descending order. So USA, $26,000 billion plus, China, Japan, Germany, India, and this is the list of top 10 countries there. And you can see that this is a GDP per capita in USD thousand. So India has 2.6 thousand, so around 2600 USD per capita, which is very low, but it is still a good thing to be here in the top 5. Why? Let's see. So benefits to be high up on the GDP list. So if you are high up on the GDP list, it indicates a larger economy. Countries with higher GDP have larger capacity to produce goods and services and often translates to greater economic influence and power on the global stage. So that's where we see, even though India is a not so rich country, probably we can say a mid income or a lower income group country, it still bears a lot of economic influence and power on global stage. Why? Because it is top 5 economic powers in the world. Investment and business opportunities. A strong GDP often attracts foreign and domestic investments. Government revenue. Higher GDP translates to government getting more tax and thereby government having more income to spend on welfare programs. Global competitiveness. It's self-explanatory. Countries with higher GDPs are often more competitive in the global marketplace. Resilience to shocks. Economies with higher GDP are more resilient in case of economic downturn. Infrastructure and development. The countries with higher GDP will definitely have more money and thereby they can develop their infrastructure in much nicer way. Higher GDP but poor population. Increasing GDP is a step in right direction, which I indicated earlier, but GDP per capita is what translates with higher standard of living and improved quality of life for citizens. How do we calculate GDP per capita? We take the whole of the GDP and divide it by the population. So it provides an estimate of average income of individuals of a country. These are the countries which are listed in descending order with respect to GDP per capita. Thank you very much.